Senator Helton, Senator Rucker, Arvind Singh, should come on up here. Brandon, come on up. Bill, come on up. Yeah, good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here today. I'm really excited to be back down here in Beckley and talking about such a critical issue. When you think about the many duties that you have as a state office holder, I think adhering to the Constitution needs to be at the top of the list. It's really important when you're looking at the First Amendment, and in particular, when you're fighting to protect our citizens' religious liberty. There can't be much of a higher calling than that. So I'm really happy to be here today, and I want to take the time to kind of walk through the reasons why we're here, how important it is, because I can tell you, some of the media are trying to cover this fairly, some are not. I want everyone here to know what we're trying to accomplish. And it's important that we get that message out to people, because when we get that message out to people, I think people are wildly on our side. But we have to tell the truth. And that's all of our obligation, to get out there and let people know just how critical this is. This is not something to just push off to the side. This is about our core religious liberties. And once you start giving that up, that's a pretty significant issue for our state and our country. And that's why we're stepping up. Let's go back to 2023. West Virginia, thanks to a number of the legislators here and others, they passed legislation, ultimately signed it to law, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That guarantees our citizens the right to the free exercise of religion. Very important. That, in tandem with the First Amendment, provides a bulwark to protect religious liberty in West Virginia. One of the values that we hold so dear in our country gets further embedded, enshrined in our state code. Under this law, no government entity, whether state or local, may burden an individual's religious liberty. Let me repeat that. No government entity, whether state or local, may burden an individual's religious liberty. Think about that for a minute. In my view, and I think the view of many, many people, this applies to the topic of religious exemptions for vaccines. And that 2023 law was passed over any of the conflicting laws. We know that there were laws passed on compulsory vaccines many, many years ago. All we did at the beginning of the year, and all we're doing now, is the executive, as per his prerogative and discretion, we're actually stepping up and we're interpreting both laws together. We have a religious freedom law and we have a vaccine law. The religious freedom law came second, and for the first time when I took office, we gave meaning to that law. We applied that law. An executive can't just ignore a law, right? The executive has to give meaning to these provisions. That's certainly what we're doing. And when you look at the religious freedom law, it's tailor-made that it should, in fact, I think it must apply to those vaccine provisions, which warrants the religious exemption. You have to read the two together. And that's all we've been doing over the last number of months. And I think it's been the correct policy. Hundreds of families have benefited from that. And I think it makes West Virginia a more open state. It makes it a state that people can be very proud of, because religious liberty is the cornerstone of what's made our country great. So I'm very pleased that we've been able to take this position. It's absolutely the correct place to be. Now, we know that despite the law that was passed in 2023, for some period of time, that law was ignored. I don't know, we have some legislators here. Anyone think you could just ignore laws? I don't think I can. I'm not above the law. Why do people think you could pass a law and ignore it? You can't. And that's the point. They're trying to make these arguments about executive orders and laws. The executive order interprets the two laws together, and that's what warrants this. That's what I think mandates this. Now, at the same time that all this was happening, You had multiple lawsuits that were filed in federal court challenging the vaccine requirements and a child's right to attend school and receive an education. When I took office earlier this year, I said I was going to clarify it. We're going to clean that up, and we're finally going to do the right thing, which is we're going to interpret both of the laws together. That's what we did. We took a very measured action consistent with the law. And so on day one, I set forth in this pathway. And I think we've handled this correctly. Now, I want to note that there have been some entities that are weighing in against that. I know that I think it's really important that we level set about what's going on. There are a number of entities that are relevant on this. You have the legislature, who passed the religious freedom law. You have an executive who's charged with taking care of the law, enforcing the law, executing the law. That's exactly what we're doing. And then you have an unaccountable set of bureaucrats in the school board that's trying to take matters into their own hands. That's unacceptable to me. There needs to be political accountability across the board. And we're going to talk about more of that in the days and weeks ahead, but it's important that there's political accountability. Right now, there's a big fight about having political accountability with the legislature, that there's oversight with the legislature. There's a lot of discussion about political accountability. I think it has to apply within the executive branch as well. And that's why you'll be hearing more from me about the school board coming up. There must be more political accountability. These are 9-year terms. That's a really long time with no political accountability. I would argue that has to change. Do you agree? Yeah. Absolutely. I am not going to let an unelected body of bureaucrats stop and strip religious liberty protections that are afforded to them under West Virginia law. Period. Now, this also shouldn't be a controversial position, because West Virginia right now, the state is an outlier. We're one of only 5 states that doesn't carve out an exception for religious freedom. One of only 5 states. And I want to walk through these other states. California, Connecticut, Maine, and New York. West Virginia is an outlier in this regard. Now, look, I'm not going to be the person to tell you that there aren't times where you're sticking up for what's right and you could be the only one of 50 to do the right thing, right? But in this case, they're proceeding. All 45 other states, they're doing the right thing because they're respecting religious liberty. That's a hard barrier to overcome for those 5 states. West Virginia is the outlier, and West Virginia and West Virginians care about their religious liberty, I would argue, as much as any state in the nation. Yes. So we have to respect our religious liberty. And that's certainly what we're doing here today. I am not going to allow someone to just simply say you're going to get to choose between your deeply held religious beliefs and their child's education, right? We have to do this the right way. So that brings me to why we're here today. Today, a lawsuit was filed in Raleigh County Circuit Court on behalf of a young woman, a mother, exercising her religious liberty to seek a religious exemption to the state's compulsory vaccination policy. I think it's important to do. Miranda Guzman is suing the county school board and the State Board of Education on behalf of her 4-year-old daughter. She's seeking an injunction against the State Board of Education's decision in hopes that her child will be able to attend school this fall. It's a very noble thing to do. As a Christian, Miranda is raising a number of objections to state-mandated vaccines that run counter to her deeply held religious beliefs, including the use of fetal cells in some of the immunizations and preemptively altering her daughter's natural immune system. As governor, I fully support Miranda's ability to seek a religious exemption, and I support her lawsuit against school board bureaucrats. Remember, this is the politically unaccountable board who are trampling on her religious freedoms. We're going to stand behind her and countless others across the state. So I'm very glad to be here today to be supportive of it. And everything we've done is consistent with the law. I'm going to explain something a lot of people don't know because, once again, I think a lot of the media tries to get it right, and a number of them don't. Why is the family stepping up? Well, they have the right under that law to file the lawsuit. The governor actually doesn't in this case. We lack standing to file the suit. So that's important for folks to know. We know what the law is. Maybe learned a thing or two as the state attorney general, right? But this family has the right to step up, and step up they are. And we're going to support them, and we're going to make sure that they know that West Virginia is going to respect religious liberty, and we will not stop this fight. Thank you. Now, I also want to make one other thing abundantly clear. This fight is not about the medical efficacy of vaccinations. That's not what it's about. But I do want to point out that we're not aware of one shred of evidence that by moving to be a state that respects religious liberty and exemption, that there is any negative public health effect. I dare the other side to provide that. They're misleading you. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to make sure the truth gets out. There is not any evidence suggesting a negative effect, period. And you come forward and you come and talk about it, because we're going to talk about it, and we're going to make sure religious liberty is respected. And when people start talking about public health impact, 45 other states, and no one's been able to draw the causal links that we're aware of. Think about that. Not to mention the importance of religious liberty being the bulwark of our Constitution and of our states' rights. Critical, important rights for the people. So this is not, let me repeat, this is not about whether or not a parent should vaccinate their children. This is about standing up for religious liberty. And I'm also going to make sure West Virginia is going to be known for that freedom. We're going to stand up strong, especially when we compare ourselves to other states. I want West Virginia to be a destination place. New families with school-age children, I want you to come here. We want to welcome people into our state with open arms. That's important. We need that. And I'm going to send that message of freedom across the land. As West Virginia, we're coming. This is our comeback. We want our state to be known as a place that respects freedom and ensures that the leaders answer to the people, not the bureaucrats. We will live by our motto, Mountaineers are always free. So I'm very happy you're here today. And I'm happy that we have a great collection of people, delegates and senators, and we're going to give some people a chance to speak. But I want to start with a gentleman who is no stranger to a lot of these fights and has been successful in a number of these fights. I'd like to introduce Aaron Siri, who has extensive experience handling a number of these cases across the country relating to vaccine policy. His experience includes successful challenges to federal and state mandates and the restoration of those exemptions. I'm very glad to hear from him today. He is the lawyer who filed the lawsuit. West Virginia is proud to stand by his side and by his family's side. I'm going to turn it over to him. Then we're going to recognize a few other people to speak. Aaron?
Thank you, Governor. And on behalf of my clients, I believe, and all the families in West Virginia that are affected by this law, I know that they thank you, and they thank your administration for standing up for their religious freedoms and their right to live in this state and exercise their deeply held convictions without persecution, the persecution of having their children excluded from school. As the governor said, and I think he said it very well, this is not about vaccines per se. Everybody who wants a vaccine should be free to get one. Get as many as you want. That's freedom. This is about religious freedom. This is about impinging on people's rights who don't want to receive these vaccines. And I think the governor's point is very well taken about what would happen if there were a religious exemption. The children in this state right now excluded from school because their parents hold sincerely held beliefs contrary to one or another practices regarding immunizations, they're not locked away. They don't disappear. These are God's children, and they are here. And we're, yeah. And they're part of West Virginia. How many people in this room, by a show of hands, know somebody whose children could be excluded from school if the governor's executive order is not honored? Almost everybody in the room raised their hand. And it's not about the executive order, as the governor said. He's just interpreting the existing law of the state of West Virginia. He's just interpreting EPRA, which came after the vaccination law, which provides religious freedom needs to be respected. If the EPRA is not interpreted to look back at the laws that exist and the conduct that's occurred, then what's the point of it? Of course, it has to look back at existing laws and existing conduct in the state and infuse the right to religious freedom within the existing conduct of government. Otherwise, the law is pointless. Now, I'd like to just speak broadly for a second about religious freedom, just because I feel like sometimes we lose sight of how important it is as a right in this country. You know, the point of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, when it was adopted by the states in the late 1700s, was to limit government. It was to tell government there's a line after which you shall not trespass. Why? Because every form of government that preceded this country didn't believe in individual rights for the most part. They believed somebody else should be able to decide how you live your life, whether it's a central authority, a king, a dictator. And this country was founded on the idea that individual rights are more important. And that, yes, they come with their own risks. Letting people free say what they want surely is a risk to the king and can come with dangers, or letting people assemble, or letting people practice their religion. But that the greater risk is always to take away people's individual rights. And hence the First Amendment enshrined as the very first right, the freedom of religion. And I want you to think about how difficult life was in the late 1770s in the United States of America. It was brutal compared to the life we live today. But yet that line was drawn for the times even harder than those. And that right was carried forward into the West Virginia Constitution, and then was enshrined in the EPRA law. And that is the law that, and that is the framework, I believe, through which we need to view these rights. Whatever risks even others might want to put up, the greater risk is taking away that right. The plaintiff here is a God-fearing woman, single mother who's just trying to raise her child. She's a nurse. And without being able to send her child to school, she will not be able to maintain her job. She has a number of religious beliefs that are contrary to giving these products to her child, including, as the governor said, a number of these products, and actually all of them in one way or another, are implicated in abortion. For example, the MMR and the varicella vaccine, in every single vial, has millions of pieces of cellular and DNA debris from the cultured cell line of an aborted fetus. If you take issue with that, you're taking issue with the CDC and the FDA and all the literature that explains how those products are developed. You got to grow virus on some kind of cellular medium, and that's the cellular medium on which it grows, and you can't filter it all out, so a lot of it ends up in the vial. Some people find that objectionable, others don't, and that's their freedom to do so. But she does, and so do many others. And they shouldn't be forced to participate in that kind of product if they find that against their religious convictions. Others, including the plaintiff here, take objection to the idea that while the Bible says you should heal your sick, what it doesn't say is that God messed up and that a child born today needs 29 injections by the first year of life, including in utero. I mean, that's up from, by the way, 3 injections in the first year of life from the CDC schedule just not that long ago, 1986. Trust in God, not man. But yet she's going to be persecuted for those views by, as the governor said, an unelected board who believe that their beliefs should trump her beliefs. And believing they have their own set of beliefs. Their beliefs, for example, include that these products all prevent transmission, even though that's not true for most of them. Most of the vaccines required for school, for example, don't prevent transmission. For example, the pertussis vaccine. In fact, according to the FDA and the worldwide consensus about that product, those who are vaccinated will have a reduction in symptoms, but they carry just as much pertussis bacterium in the nasopharynx, are just as likely to spread it. Again, you'd have to argue with the FDA if you take issue with that fact. Okay, that is a fact. So what does that mean? Who's more likely to spread pertussis in school? It's actually the children are vaccinated because they're less likely to have symptoms. Again, there's actually more circulating pertussis bacterium in the United States right now than before the introduction of the acellular pertussis vaccine. That is fact in the literature, precisely because of the phenomenon I just told you, or at least the same amount. Do we exclude children from school who are vaccinated for pertussis? Of course not, because rights should be inviolable. You should not violate them, even though they are more likely, according to the science, to potentially spread the pathogen. But here's the thing. The unelected bureaucrats at the Board of Education, it's not about the facts in some ways. They have beliefs about these products. And they want my client and parents across this state to adopt their beliefs over their own beliefs. But that's not how the EPRA works. That's not how the West Virginia Constitution works, and it's certainly not what the First Amendment was intended to protect. I have a message to all the medical organizations out there who are fighting against letting kids back in school. Again, children who are not disappearing, they're not locked up. They're part of this community. There are communities in West Virginia. There are communities in this country. They're not going anywhere. They're in this room, I'm sure. They're in this building. They are in the malls. They are everywhere. They are God's children, and they shouldn't be excluded from school. And the attempts by medical, quote unquote, health authorities to exclude them by these organizations, you are hurting your own agenda. When you try to bully people rather than persuade them on the merits, that doesn't cause them to come around. That causes them to fight. And if you want parents to vaccinate, persuade them, convince them. Don't bully them. Don't coerce them. Don't be like the dictators of old that preceded what this country was founded upon, which was individual rights. As the governor pointed out, West Virginia is a very religious state. I believe it's one of the most religious in the country. And if, we can't protect religious freedom in this state, then we are in very big trouble as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Aaron. And now we're going to turn it over to Dr. Arvind Singh for some brief comments. I think he's going to help illuminate some of the healthcare issues involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your leadership on such an important topic. Good morning, and thank you all for being here today. In West Virginia, we believe that the protection of faith and family are not just values, they're constitutional rights. Governor Morrisey and I, as the Secretary of Health for the state of West Virginia, stand firm in our commitment to protect those rights. That's why the governor issued Executive Order 7-25 to allow a parent's ability to claim a religious exemption from school-required vaccines. Just as the governor mentioned, 45 other states across this country already do. And let me be clear, as mentioned before, this is not a question of being for or against vaccines. West Virginia remains one of the most vaccinated states in the country when it comes to childhood immunizations. This order does not change that. It simply ensures that people of faith are not punished for making personal, prayerful decisions about their children's health. Critics have argued that allowing religious exemptions will lead to outbreaks. The data tells a much different story. States such as Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania permit religious exemptions while maintaining immunization rates above 90%. There is no meaningful evidence that such exemptions have led to increased incidence of disease at the population level. In fact, CDC surveillance shows that outbreaks remain rare in highly vaccinated states, regardless of exemption policy. Even last year, with the highest exemption rate in United States history at 3.3% for children, MMR coverage nationally still averaged nearly 93%, safely within the CDC's herd immunity benchmarks of between 90 to 95%, dependent on disease. Responsible public health policy and religious liberty can coexist. For those families who wish to file a religious exemption, here's how you do it. Write and sign a letter, email that letter, your child's name and date of birth, your mailing address, your name as well, the name of the school or child care center, and the school year for which you're requesting an exemption. And then you'll email it to vaccineexemption@wv.gov. There is no notarization required, and you'll receive a confirmation email that we've received your request. And your school will also be notified if you choose. And let me close with this. West Virginia is a beautiful state filled with hardworking families who love their children, live their values, and seek to do what's right. We should not be one of the only 5 states still denying parents their God-given right to make decisions of conscience. At a time when we're working to attract families, students, and new residents, we should not be creating barriers for people of faith. To the families fighting for this exemption, keep going. The governor and I stand with you. We are defending not just your health decisions, but your freedom to make them. Thank you, and may God bless West Virginia.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're now going to turn it over first to Senator Brian Helton, who represents this area, who's been a real leader in his short time in the legislature.
Thank you, Governor. I'll let her do it. Hands off. I can hold it. I can hold it. Yeah, I can hold it. No worries. Thanks. First of all, I want to thank Governor Morrisey for that executive order he signed on day one in office, and he's lived by that up until this point. And I tell you, we had a good legislative session in the Senate in this regard, where we passed not only medical, not only religious, but also philosophical reasons. Because, you know, I agree with what the governor just said. Mountaineers are always free, and we have to start acting like it. You know, I don't know how anyone else in here feels, but I kind of find it surreal or a little bit unbelievable that we're one of only 5 states that do not allow parents to make decisions about their own children. And, you know, you look at the 5 states that border us, that touch us. A lot of us in West Virginia, we're known for vacation in Myrtle Beach. By the way, you can't get there, right? You can't get there without going through the unvaccinated, right? Because all the states from here to there have the freedoms that we currently do not enjoy. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I think it'd be great if the State Board of Education focused this off season on getting us out of 50th place, right? I think it'd be just a great thing if they would do that. You know, they don't want legislative oversight. They don't want executive oversight. They want to continue to be able to fail. Our parents and we hear this a lot through the media and through the legislature about the Hope Scholarships hurting the budget. The charter schools are hurting the budget. The reason those numbers are exploding is because our parents are very disenchanted with what's going on with our public schools in West Virginia. And they don't like the fact that we have a governor and we have a legislature, and I believe the House is going to come along this year, that are going to start giving our parents the freedoms that we deserve as Mountaineers. So thank you. So I'm just so excited to be here today. We had interims up at Stonewall this week. Senator Rucker and I were there. Delegate Root, we were there this week, and I couldn't wait to get out of there this week. So I have to admit, I skipped a committee meeting this morning to be here on time, because this is a great day for West Virginia. Let's continue to fight and support our governor's leadership in this. Let's all of you get a hold of your delegates and your senators and make sure they vote the right way on this next year. Let's get this across the line. Let's see freedom reign again in West Virginia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator. You've really been a breath of fresh air. I now want to turn it over to, would you like to say a few words? Senator Patricia Rucker, been a great leader in the state for advancing educational attainment and a big advocate for these religious exemptions.
I did not have plans to speak, but I will tell you that this is an issue that is very close to my heart. I've been fighting it now for 9 years. The reason I ran is because I wanted our children in West Virginia to get the best education possible. What led me to campaign for office is I wanted to improve the education in West Virginia. And yes, I have advocated for school choice. And all those who oppose choice, who oppose parents having the decision of what is best for their child and where is the best place for them to get that, those same folks are angry that parents would ever choose anything outside of the traditional public schools that we have in the state. They accuse them of things. They want us to try to stop that type of freedom. And here they are kicking our children out of public schools with this decision that they've made. All these years that I have been working with them and I've been advocating to improve options for parents and options for families, I have also been advocating for religious exemptions to vaccinations. It's all equal. You, the parents, know what's best. And I trust you to make the best decision for your child. And it is not the government that's going to tell you what that decision is. So I'm very grateful to have a governor who understands this and who's going to be backing us up. I'm very grateful for the current legislative leaders that we have who have joined in on this. I am so grateful to meet Aaron Siri in person, who I've been following for many, many years, and grateful for all of you who have come out middle of the week, very short notice, to be here with us. And I know the hundreds that you represent out there in West Virginia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. You guys want to say a few words? We also have some leaders on the House of Delegates side who have been staunch advocates for this policy. So we'll start with Delegate Brandon Steele.
Thank you. Thank you. I knew there was a press conference today, and it's good to see a lot of friends here that I haven't seen in a long time, and good to see that they're all doing well. And thank the governor for the invite. I really didn't know what the press conference was today, so I'm really excited. For those of you that know me, this has been a huge issue for me. It always has been. It's something that we've went through on the personal side with our family. And like Senator Rucker, we fought the fight the entire time we've been here, and we've lost a lot, but we still keep fighting because of exactly what the governor just said. Religious freedom has got to carry the day in West Virginia. And just like the governor just said, vaccines can work 100% of the time and be completely safe and effective. That's not the issue. The issue is whether or not the government has the right to tell you, set your religion down and take what we're putting in you, or you don't get to go to school. That's wrong. I find that fundamentally wrong. Again, as DHS Secretary said, this is not an issue of efficacy of vaccines. This is an issue of efficacy of your constitutional right to pursue the religion of your choice and worship the God that you worship. It has nothing to do with effectiveness. Nothing. It has everything to do with the effectiveness of your fundamental rights. And that's what we've been fighting so hard for so long for. And the governor brought up in 23 when we had the debate on the floor. I remember the debate on the floor. The bill had passed the Senate. It come over to the House, I believe is how it went. And I remember the delegate from Ohio County standing up, and I'll never forget it. I was one of the sponsors. So no, we had to send it to the Senate first. Yeah. So it was on the House side first. And the delegate from Ohio County said, he stood up and said, hope all y'all know, this is going to be used to undo the vaccine mandates, this bill, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And God bless me, I hit my button as hard as I could. And everybody that knows me in there knows that I hit that button hard. And the speaker called on me next. And I'll never forget him standing up and saying that. And I stood up and I said, I pray to God Almighty it does. That's exactly why we're passing this bill right now. That is exactly why we passed that bill. So the government could quit stepping over our God and dictating to us through fear how we're to live our life. And I will tell you this right now, there's not a person up here that legislates or governs out of fear. We legislate and govern out of courage. We are mountaineers are always free. We don't live by fear. We live by courage. When Bluefield and Graham play, there's not an outbreak of smallpox. I'm sorry, there's not. When we cross the border to go to Ashland, Kentucky, or to go to Lexington, we don't come back with chicken pox or the measles. When we go to Pennsylvania and go watch a Pirates game, we don't come back with the mumps. We just don't. I'm sorry. And here we have 29 of these. And as the doctor said, and Mr. Siri, thank you for being here. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you to and I would say, fighting this fight as long as I have, as long as Senator Rucker has, as long as Governor Morrisey has, we know, and everybody in this room, I see a lot of friendly faces out there that have fought this fight beside me for a long time. And I'm thankful that you allowed me to be your voice for so long. I really am thankful for that and grateful that I had the opportunity to speak your heart as well as mine. But with that, we all know comes bullying. I mean, how much of that? Ridicule, shaming. And I got to say, thank you for having the courage to come here. And thank your client for having the courage to stand up and put her name on the dotted line. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And I mean that from the bottom. And to do it here in my home county, thank you. And I pray to God that you're successful and that you have every blessing that God could put on you, that your mind, I know, has got to be sharp as a two-edged sword, but I'm telling you 300% more as I'm praying on you right now, because we've been waiting for this for a long time, Governor. Thank you so much.
You want to speak to? And now, last but certainly not least, another one of your local delegates, been very strong on this issue, Bill Roop.
Thank you, Governor. Let me first tell you a little story. We were in my first session. The governor calls us over, calls a few people over, and he said, Delegate, what can I do for you? What can I do for your district? And I said, don't forget us. Don't forget Southern West Virginia. Don't forget Beckley, Raleigh County. And now I'm going to ask him, can you take a week off so I can get my work done? He has been here every week, it seems like. I get a phone call. And so he's not letting me forget my request, but thank you for being here again. Let me say faith and family. Faith and family, those two words, and thank you for saying that, resonate in me. Because what is more important than my own personal faith, and what is more important than my 2 kids and my wife, my family? And some of you know me, and I hold them near and dear. And I think that right of ours, whether you and I believe the same as far as faith goes, we both have the right to believe a certain way. And whether you like the way I raise my kids, that's okay. You raise yours the way you want to. But those 2 words are so important to me, and our freedom and our right to believe the way we want to believe, raise our kids the way we want to, and provide for them are very, very important to me. And believe me so. And I thank you for each one of you being here today, and I thank the governor for being here also.
Well, thank you very much, delegate and senators and everyone who joined here today. We have time for just a couple questions from the media. So just from the media, any questions from back there? TV, you guys, anyone? Media? Everyone's good? Anyone from the media? Okay. Guys, we're going to be here for a few minutes after. We'll be able to spend a little bit of time with you. I want to end on this note. We're very grateful for this brave woman to step forward today to file this suit. I think this is going to be a really important battle going forward. It's about the heart and soul of our state and our respect for religious freedom, the Constitution. It's also about bringing political accountability back to the system. I'm not going to stand by and let an unelected board of bureaucrats set aside core constitutional and religious freedoms. We are not. And we're going to educate people. We're going to work with all people of good faith. We have to make sure, though, that we always stand strong for your religious freedom. And that's what we will do. I'm grateful for you here. I ask all of you, make sure people know what's going on. There's a lot of good-minded people that are going to report it fairly. A lot of people won't. Get the word out. Tell them what's at stake. We need people across West Virginia to talk about the importance of our religious freedoms. And don't make this about some executive order. You know what it is? It's interpreting and giving meaning to our religious freedom restoration law the way it should have been interpreted. And I thank you, delegate, for your words. We're going to go out. We're ultimately going to win this fight, and we're going to do it with your help. Thank you to everyone for coming today, and God bless you.